Everybody, Quantum back here on May the 9th, right at 9 p.m. And we now have the full 204 set list for Ursula's Return. I'm on Lorcana player this time because this is the only place that I could find that had all the cards listed, I think. And I've had some time to think through some of the cards that I thought were going to be powerful. And what I want to do in this video is outline what I think are the best cards from the set. And hopefully, I won't go too long because I realize my other videos are like 40 minutes long. But I want to explain a little bit about why I think they're going to be really good. And I'll maybe touch upon why some cards may not be as good, at least in my opinion right now. Of course, everything has the potential to get really, really good. And some cards may end up being good and I'm just wrong, right? So I'll keep all that in mind. One of the cards that really caught my eye, though, to start off with is this Ariel, Singer 7, 4 cost. A 3/3. So I've talked about this ever since set 1 with the first Ariel, where that one obviously can scry 4 and pick up a song, and I said that card is just gets better and better until it gets power crept, where you're able to tutor a song from your deck. So the first Ariel is still very, very strong. Singer 5 for 3 is likely the most impactful Ariel that you're going to get, but this one has potential, and I think this comes in the starter deck, which is nice because I talked about this with set 2, saying like Mim Fox is going to be insanely powerful, and I'm glad that it comes in the starter deck. Same with Merlin Rabbit, and even though those came in starter decks, you're seeing those cards being worth like $6 or $7 now, which is like half the price of the starter deck in USD. So this card I think is definitely worth getting a playset while it's cheap, while it's in the starter deck. Same with Hiram's, right? I think Hiram actually is still cheap, but these are really, really powerful cards. Ravensburger knows what they're doing, it seems, because they put these really powerful cards in the starter decks, knowing that they're going to be the chase rares. I think this card will be good because it's, again, one of those cards that just gets better over time. The Sing Together ability, right? Utilizing this as a Singer 7 so that you may only need one other card to sing a really powerful Sing Together song can be super impactful, right? Amber, like having this singer mechanic, like really puts it in a really good position moving forward into the game, because we haven't really seen Amber impact too much aside from Amber Steel Song being like the definitive deck since set 1. But Amber really has the potential to branch out as other ink colors get more powerful songs, simply because it has the singer mechanic. So this Ariel I think is really good. Now on the other hand, this Cinderella, for the stat line here, it quests for 2. You're not really going to use it to quest too much, right? You want it for the singer. I mean, yeah, it's nice if you don't have a song you quest, but 5 cost, it is inkable. It's not the worst, but I just think Singer 9 seems kind of overkill. If we do end up getting a lot of powerful songs later on that are really high cost, like Be Prepared, sing like costing 7, 8, 9, 10, this and Sing Together 10 plus, like this card will likely get better over time, because again, it's just another one of those singers. So it's hard to say what will happen with this card because it is a princess, right? It is a Cinderella. So it might be worth a lot when it first comes out, but I would look to try to pick this up when I think it's maybe stabilized, or maybe at one of its lowest points, because having a playset of this for the future, and I'm talking like long term, like 3+ years, again, these singer cards likely just get better. It's hard to say that these get power crept out. I mean, eventually they probably will. Like, you'll get cards that have singers plus abilities, kind of like what the Ariel had in set 1. But I think we're a little bit away from that. I didn't see this card. It's just a common, though. Okay, that's not really too relevant. This Daisy Duck, 4 cost, inkable, 2/3. So very similar to the Emerald Daisy Duck that costs 4. It is inkable. It's a 2/3, but it quests for 2, and when it quests, your opponent discards a card. This character, when it comes into play, makes your opponent discard a card. This is better than the Emerald Daisy Duck, in my opinion. And I've talked about this many times, so I'm not going to go over it here. But if you've watched my videos before, on play effects versus, I have to play it, wait a turn to exert it, or quest with it, or whatever. It's just those kind of cards are becoming more and more vulnerable as we see more and more removal come into the game. So these on-play effects are definitely going to be really valuable. I'll be looking to pick up 4 foil ones of these as quickly as possible. It's I think this is the better Daisy for sure. We got another Donald Musketeer here, a bodyguard, 2/3 for 3. When you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. So this is again that mechanic that I keep talking about, which is needed in every ink color really, because these kind of mechanics start to separate, like it widens the skill gap now, because these kind of effects are things that you as the opponent have to think about when you're playing against this ink color. So if your opponent has like five lore on board, and they're maybe at like 14, and you're like, okay, they can go to 19, right? We've seen this already with Amber, right? Where somebody plays a Stitch and you're like, okay, they can't quest for game, but then they're like, shift Stitch with the Rockstar, quest for the extra 2, and now I have game, right? This character coming into play, not needing that specific, I need it, both the Stitches to, air quotes, combo or shift. I just play this, give one of my characters +1 lore, and now I can quest for game. Akin to kind of what like Goat does, and I know people think that that's not healthy for the game, and I think Goat is probably a little overpowered, but this card is, I think, something that's very interesting for the game because it allows you to strategize a little bit more in advance, and it means that your opponent has to be very aware that this could be something that they have to worry about, right? So again, it just introduces that skill gap where you have to maybe try to play a little bit differently to play around something like this, winning the game for your opponent or getting them that extra edge, or something that you have to try to play into, right, to know that this is maybe like one of your outs or something like that. So just introducing more dynamism into the game is pretty good in my opinion. This Gaston, okay, this not relevant, just like the Pluto. We've seen these, more Musketeers, it's kind of cool. More Madrigals. We talked about this one already in my last video. What is this one here? Max 4/3 for 3. Okay. Mim Fox. If you have a character named Prince Eric in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. Whoa. 2 costing 4/3 if you have a Prince Eric. That's really good. But again, does it do enough to displace other things in Amber? Hard to say. I would say probably not, but very interesting. What does this Madrigal do again? Support whenever... Okay, yeah, so this is like Madrigal, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, archetype specific stuff. Well, you got a Pluto here. I think you have to click on this one to see what this one does. To the rescue, when you play this character, you can remove up to 3 damage from one of your character's 5 cost. That's pretty good for a common, man. Probably really good in draft, I would imagine. Oh, what happened here? Okay. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. We've reviewed these Ursulas already. Oh, we didn't see this Prince. Oh, there's a 3 cost 3 Prince Eric with Bodyguard. That's the Hercules. This Prince Eric here. Shift 4. Why does he look clueless in this picture? Ursula. Oh, because he's becoming Ursula's groom. He is clueless. 6 cost Inkable. Uncommon. 5/5 body. Okay. John Silver stat line from Emerald. Legendary. Quest for 2. While you have a character named Ursula in play, this character gains Bodyguard and +2 defense, +2 toughness. What? That seems pretty good for an uncommon. Shift 4. Yeah, it becomes a 5/7. So why that's relevant, right? That plays around all removal. Plays around Maui, plays around Zeus, plays around... Madame Medusa, obviously, like it plays like it's a solid. This hits the board with an Ursula on board, and like I have Bodyguard, so good luck. And anything you throw into it, like you're gonna need to throw multiple things into it. I think this is pretty good. Yep. Nice uncommon too, and quest for 2. Damn, and it's inkable. This is the pretty good uncommon. Okay? So when I say it's a pretty good uncommon, in isolation, it's a good uncommon, okay? It doesn't mean it's going to slot its way into every Amber deck. You have to build around this card, or not really build around it, but like it has to fit into like that archetype of like Eric's and Ursula's. You're not going to throw this into Amber Steel Song probably, or the existing top meta decks right now, but you never know. Like one of these decks could break through as a meta deck, right? We saw Merlin and Mim break through as the definitive tier 0 deck literally in set 2, right? Like that archetype was the best archetype in the game in set 2. So Ursula and Eric probably not going to be the best archetype, but good card overall, might be worth building around and testing out. I'm just happy to see Amber get more like playable cards. We're going to skip over all of these, not relevant. Lost in the Woods, not relevant. I've talked about this card. I think this card is going to be good. Similar, like Bare Necessities was like the secret sleeper in my opinion of set 3. I know I aggressively picked up extra copies because I think that card is just insane. This card also being a 2 cost inkable rare. Banish this item if you have 3 or more characters in play, gain 2 lore, and remove up to 2 damage from a location. Like just the gain 2 lore I think is very interesting. There are very niche applications of card draw to offset the the negative advantage you get from this card, but the gain 2 lore, again, similar to what I was just talking about with gaining lore off of, I think it was the Donald Duck or whatever, coming into play and giving one of your characters +1 lore when it quests. close out a game unexpectedly. Your opponent has to be like, oh damn, I can't let him get to 18 because he can goat me, air quotes, from the candle, right? The goat is going to become like the standard that people call it when people win the game without questing, I think. We'll see. Oh, I didn't see this bell. Oh, I'm gonna have to click on it. Oh no, I think I've seen this one. This is the move a damage counter. I mean, probably not too relevant. I mean, it is a low cost bell. What does it cost again? 3 though? Okay, never mind. We reviewed all of these. Oh, I don't think I saw this one. Evasive. Ooh, a 4 cost inkable 3/3 evasive. Interesting. Exert. Name a card, then reveal a top card of your deck. If it's the name card, put it in your hand and gain 3 lore. Whoa, and evasive. That's a super rare. I mean, you have to, again, it's that whole problem of you have to wait a turn, right? Being a 3 body though, okay, so I'm getting too far ahead of myself. You have to obviously pair this with a card that scries, right? In order for it to be useful. So it's probably not playable just because it's very situational in order to get the combo off. But it's a cool card. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's nice because it could be card advantage and lore gain obviously, but again, just too slow, too situational. Cool concept though. Skipping ahead here. This card is also in the starter decks, I believe. So again, I talked about this kind of at length. I was really debating, like, going back and forth. I think this card is definitely worth picking up. I can see this being a very important focal point of certain Amethyst decks. Does it make its way into the top tier decks? It possibly could, yeah. Because when you think about like Ruby Amethyst, for example, there's not too much that you want to play on turn 5. Obviously, Maui comes to mind. But aside from that, like, what other 5 costing cards are you playing? Like, you don't play the Jim Hawkins, really, right? This card, evasive, quest for 4. It's pretty strong. So yeah, I mean, like in a challenge focused deck or something like that, right? Like, this is your quest or everything else challenges. Wipe the board. This is evasive, protects itself for a little while, hopefully, until it gets outed by non-challenge removal. You got the 1 cost Broom here, a 1/2, nice and tidy. Whenever you play another character, you may banish this character to draw a card. So kind of like Chernobog's Followers in reverse, a 1/2 instead of a 2/1. And you have to play another character instead of quest with it in order to banish it and draw a card. So you quest with this, you play another character, you banish this, you draw your card. This kind of, I talked about this with the Yensid. You play this on turn 1, Yensid on turn 2, draw the card because you have a Broom in play. Turn 3, you drop another Broom, Yensid quest for 3. Again, very kind of situational combo, but if you're playing a Broom focused deck, that's what it does. You got just a generic Broom there. Magical Maid, Feather Duster. This is the maid from Beauty and the Beast. Lumiere's love interest. A 2 cost 2/2 that quest for 2. So just, the Aurora from set 1 and Sapphire, 2 cost 2/2 quest for 2. Interesting. Yeah, we've seen all of these already. Oh, I didn't see this one. A 2 cost 3/2. Okay, that's standard. You got the small Ursula here. Cool artwork. Adam Ford, very nice. Very nice. Dreamborn, reimagined, right? 2 cost Challenger 2. So this is Prince Eric in Amethyst. Becomes a 3/3 when challenging. Because Eric is a 1/3/4/2, right? Gets Challenger 2. So very interesting. Again, just more like it's the name that's relevant, right? Like the low cost. And it's a decent, I mean, Prince Eric was played, like it's decent. But again, as soon as this thing gets exerted, it's so vulnerable, right? I talked about this already. Man, I think this card is going to be really good. Oh no, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay. I don't know. I'm probably overhyping this card, but I think this card is going to be great. I was one of the first. I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say it that way. It's probably when I was building Ruby Amethyst in set 1, like physically in the card game to go play at locals. I haven't been to locals in like 7 or 8 weeks, by the way. But Ursula, Power Hungry from set 1. was one of the cards that I actually aimed at picking up. One, because nobody had Elsa's to sell me, even though they were like $50. But this card I was able to pick up for like 15, and I actually really like this card for the simple fact that it replaced itself, like it drew a card. Because again, I come from the Yu-Gi-Oh mindset, right? And card advantage was everything back when I played like in the early 2000s. And card advantage in this game at that point was really important too, right? Because there wasn't too many draw engines. But that's why I like Amethyst, is because I liked card advantage. So this Ursula, the reason why I like it is because it kind of fits in with the set 1 Ursula. Yes, it's not card advantage, but it's that big body that quests for 3 as well, and it has decent abilities. So yes, the Ursula being able to replace itself from set 1, in the context of what the set 1 meta was very strong. But once that hit the board, like, it was very hard to deal with, right? Because of the 8 toughness. There weren't too many things that were dealing with it, especially in its toughest matchup, which was Amber Steel Song at the time. Amber Steel Song would have a tough time outing that Ursula, just like Steel always does. And this card just being this beefy is really nice. Again, it survives a Maui. It survives, it survives everything that's relevant. Just like that Prince Eric from Amber that we reviewed. Yeah, I'll be looking at probably picking up 4 of these as soon as I can, just personally. Even if it's not good, or not like super meta, I still think it's like just decent for a fun card. Like, it's a powerful card in my opinion. Again, I'm probably overhyping it, but yeah, I mean, again, it's probably like an Ursula focused deck. You play this, right? So Yen Sid, again, a Broom deck if you're gonna play that. The Sing Together card. Somebody pointed out in my comments, they're like, if you're playing Emerald Amethyst, like maybe a top end version with like Ursula Deceiver and Jafar's, you draw 10 cards and gain 10 lore. Because Jafar costs what, 7, and he shifts for 5, and then if you already have the Ursula on board, both of them together is 10, right? I believe I almost want to go to my binder and pull out the Jafar just to look at it, see if it is a 7 cost. I think it is. So you have the Ursula, the Emerald Ursula that double sings, plus the Jafar. Draw 10 and put it back to the bottom of your deck and gain 10 lore. Kind of crazy. Nothing else from Amethyst really piques my interest too much. This card is interesting, but again, uninkable. It's just negative card advantage, right? Like, it's unfortunate. And it's, your opponent's choice. These cards weren't anything too special. This card, I think I pointed out, yeah, like Beast Relentless can like ping multiple times. Or like, Beast Relentless can go up to quest for 4 and then ready itself if you deal damage, and then quest again for 4. But like, between Amethyst and Emerald, what do you really have that's going to ping damage? Nothing, right? This location. An interesting, but again, 3 cost uninkables. This won't be played at all. I talked about this card already. I think this card is pretty good. Not really something that I would probably see play right now, considering Emerald plays super low to the ground. But if Emerald ever breaks away from that identity or becomes more of a splashable color, I talked about this already in this video, I think this card can be very good. This Hades, I talked about it. Like, I think it's going to be overhyped. For those of you that don't know what it does, again, it's just, you have to play this on turn 4, and then turn 5 you can use the ability, banish one of your other characters, play a character with the same name as the banished character for free. So I was talking about like Ursula, and somebody rightfully pointed out you can just shift the Ursula, like the new one, for 5 instead of banishing your 2-cost Ursula and then playing that one. The reason why you would want to do that is because you preserve your 5 ink for that turn, and then you can banish your small Ursula, play the big one, and then still have 5 ink to develop another threat, right? Yes, you could still shift it, but that's what this card facilitates. I don't think it's going to be that great. I think it will be overhyped, but I could be wrong. It could be like absolutely busted. Guess we'll find out. What else do we want to take a look at here? Look at all the lore counts on all these Emerald cards. They're all like super high questers. It's kind of ridiculous. This Pegasus is the new Pascal. The downside is you have to play Emerald, but hey, Emerald's been doing work lately. But that's mainly because of the cards that came in in set 2 and 3. But yeah, picking up 4 foil ones of this would be kind of nice too. Go along with the four foil Pascals. There's definitely going to be a deck like what you see already with with Emerald Amethyst being like super low to the ground and playing the Pascals. You'll see this be subbed in with that package, probably, and take advantage of cards that like need a bunch of characters on board to do stuff. Again, just a solid card overall. And I've already talked about this shift one. It is a high risk to play this card, but it is pretty good if you can get this off in like your aggro strategy. But again, it's kind of one of those things that are situational. Like you have to make sure you still have a board when you shift it in order for you to get the advantage of keeping your characters safe with evasive, and assuming your opponent can't out evasive characters, and you need the shift in order to do it. So you need 2 cards very specifically. Yeah, so it is what it is. I talked about this Prince Philip. I think it's an interesting card, but probably doesn't see too much competitive play. What is this one? Dodge. Chosen character gains. Okay, so one of those again. Just gain some abilities. Each opponent may choose and discard a card for each opponent who doesn't you draw a card. 1 cost uninkable. I don't think this does enough given the discard that we have already. I mean, yes, it's nice, like air quotes, improvise, draw a card, but if your opponent is just like, whatever, I'll just discard this like super high cost uninkable that I have, it's kind of pointless. I talked about this already. I think this card is really great. Again, could be way off the mark, but if you've played this card at a higher level, you probably know that good opponents will know how to develop their board and play in top deck mode. And so this card being able to bounce and discard at the same time is basically banish chosen character, right? If played the right way, because you bounce that high cost character that they've played, that they've developed, and then you make them discard it, right? So it's a very efficient form of removal. It's a way to trigger your Prince John if you have that developed, and it's a song, right? So pretty good in my opinion. Shout out to everybody in the comments who point out what this does. These cards that replace themselves, always super powerful in my opinion. Yes, it's a 2 cost, not a 1 cost like Popsicle, but yeah, just being able to replace itself is really, really good in and of itself. And then all those powerful Emerald cards that are uninkable now become inkable, which is very nice. I think this card probably sees some play. Again, like, even if it doesn't do anything for a little while, like, draw a card, Upstart Goblin for 1. Well, it costs 2, but I think that's pretty decent. Somebody pointed out in my comments, so again, I love the comments, guys. Make sure you're commenting, talking about combos and different things that you've seen. Or I don't watch many other videos, so I don't know what other people are usually saying, but I know there's some really smart people out there, obviously really top players that may be reviewing this as well. And if you pull something from one of their videos, just drop it if I miss something. But somebody pointed out in one of my videos that damage counters can't be removed stops Rapunzel and like things that heal, which if that's the case, this card is better than I thought it was going to be. Because not only does it stop all that Amethyst move damage counters, which doesn't really matter because nobody plays that, or I don't think anybody will play that, but the fact that it stops, like, this card can single-handedly shut down Amber, Ruby, Mufasa, because their only draw engine, at least in set 3, I'm sure they'll have other ways, their only real draw engine was Rapunzel. It's not until like the late game where they can start dropping the Stitches to draw 2 that they have anything else that really draws some cards. And so putting this down and then discarding their hand with Emerald like just wins you the game against Amber, Ruby, Mufasa. So they drop their Mother Gothel, and then they and then you drop this, and then they're just like, oh, well, Ink Rapunzel, I guess, because they don't have any item removal in that deck. So interesting card. Again, wish we had sideboards, but again, in a best of 2 format, it's not going to really be a thing. Moving on to Ruby. So Ruby, like, thinking about this a little bit more, because I am a Ruby Amethyst player at heart, I think Ruby might be the best color out of this set. And I've talked about this already in one of my videos, but like this card potentially is going to shift the meta just like Mim Fox did for set 2. And I talked very much at length, if you watch my videos from back in the day in set 2, about what Mim Fox represented. And I think we kind of saw that play out a little bit, right? Obviously, it became a tier 0 deck. But this card does die to Mim Fox, funnily enough. But what's very interesting is if you play this in Ruby Amethyst, I think you start to play the Peter Pan Shadow again. I don't think you have to, because this card is that good on its own. But giving this card evasive to protect it as well, because I think the Peter Pan Shadow is the one that gives rush characters evasive. That is ridiculous, in my opinion. Yeah, really strong card, man. Like, this card is just... And the fact that if you play this in Ruby Amethyst, you have Maui that rushes, you'll have Mim Fox that rushes, and you'll have Peter Pan Shadow that rushes. You know, you start playing more of those Pinocchios, more things that exert stuff. You probably put back in, like... Because you can afford to now, you can probably put back in the big cost Elsa. So again, I'm kind of talking about what cards might be worth picking up now if you don't have them already. The set 1 Elsa... Because if you're able to keep pace with your opponent and out their threats earlier, they're not going to quest aggressively enough, and then maybe the game does develop into turns like 7 or 8, and then you can drop that Elsa, right, and actually get some real value off of challenging. Yeah, this card not only does it like, I mean, I know the stat line isn't too impressive, but like what I'm thinking is you can drop this card, challenge, gain lore, bounce it back with the Mim card, right, and then when you drop it again, you just challenge right away again. Could be Mim Snake, Mim Fox. So like the ability to bounce this back and like heal it up, air quotes, to recast it and have it be used right away again. Like, and then your opponent now has to be like, now I have to play around this Goofy coming down and taking out my threat or taking out my card, and gaining the lore, right? It's like that interaction is just really strong, because we already saw what Mim Fox did in set 2 when it was the dominant force, where, you know, you bounce back something and your opponent's like, now I have to play around that card because I know you have it in your hand, and it just makes the board very awkward to develop. So man, this card, I don't think it's in a starter deck, right? There's no Ruby. Man, I hope this card's not worth like $10 on release or something. Everybody's gonna want this card, I think. At least if you play Ruby, you're gonna want this card for sure. Nothing too impressive up here, I don't think. This Flynn Rider as a super rare at the start of your turn, if you have a character with more strength than each opposing character, gain 3 lore. I think I talked about this. You know, the 2 cost 2/2 is like meh. This card potentially could be like really good though. I'll probably pick up a playset. I'm happy to see that high strength characters get some support, if that even makes sense. But this is like kind of support for high strength characters. So what comes to mind with this, right? What 1 cost character can you play that's going to have more strength than anything your opponent has? So when you drop this on turn 2, at the start of turn 3, can your opponent develop something on turn 2 that's going to have more strength than your 1 drop? Later on in the game, you know, this card comes down, can win you the game instantly, right? If you and your opponent are in top deck mode. It does seem a little situational, but if you're playing Ruby, like, can you imagine late game Maleficent Dragon, 7 strength, you drop this, like, they need to out this card, because this, you know, that's 6 lore. You gain 3 at the start of your next turn, you quest with this, that's 4, and then you quest with the Maleficent, that's 6, right? So yeah, good in the early game and late game potentially, depending on how your Ruby deck is built. This card, what I realized, I think somebody pointed it out to me, is we didn't really have low-cost Bloodborns. So, you know, you're not going to play Honest John, really. But like Bucky getting more Floodborns for discard, like, you know, now it's like I have to worry about a 3-cost Bloodborne coming down, whereas before it was a 4-cost, right? I think like Jafar was the first one they could play on turn 4. Now it's like they can play one on turn 3, right? I mean, you're probably not shifting this; you're just dropping this raw for 3. And then this card in particular, giving Characters with 4 more strength plus 1 lore. You know, Lumiere, giving plus 1 strength to everything. Again, more like high strength support. So like again, this with the Flynn. Lumiere, like that Lumiere card, I think is also going to be one. Like, and this is why I think like you can already see like 2 banger rares in Ruby already. I think this card is going to be worth a decent amount too. Will it be good? I think it's good, but again, that 2 for 2/2 is a very underwhelming stat line, but the ability is really, really strong. Like really strong. Like really strong. Like it makes Maui a 7/5. It makes Maleficent Dragon an 8/5. It makes not that you really pair this with Steel, or maybe you do, but it makes all of those things that die to Medusa. Somebody pointed this out in one of my videos in the comments as well. Like, oh, like things that die to Medusa. Make them a 4 instead of a 3. That's why this card is going to be relevant. Speaking of dying to Medusa, Mulan Elite Archer. So I thought this card wasn't really going to be that great, but in the context of being able to shift it, like you had to wait and see what Mulans were going to come out. And this card is going to be pretty decent. I don't want to say like super good, because I think what this card really hinges on, like when you think about what Tinkerbell did in set 1, right? Tinkerbell was a huge momentum shift. Like when you saw that 3-drop Tinkerbell come down, you were like, well, if they have the shift Tinkerbell, even in like into set 2 and even set 3, it's like if people didn't really play the small Tinkerbell yet. And I talked a lot about this, right? If you watch my videos, with my Steel Deck videos, and I was like, Tinkerbell just is so underwhelming now because you don't have that instant like impact ability. Like, yes, you hit the board, you deal 1 damage to everything, but in set 1, like you were so afraid when you saw that 3-drop Tinkerbell, because you're like, if they do have the shift Tink, I lose my whole board, right? So like I maybe don't quest or have to wait, and then they just do other things on their next turn, and they just like hold that Tinkerbell, or even if they have it, maybe they're bluffing. That's what this card can represent. Because man, if this thing comes down on the shift and you challenge something with that 5 strength, and you do like it doesn't even have to banish, it just deals damage to another character in a challenge. And then you have to deal the same amount of damage to 2 other chosen characters. So like if you deal, and if you end up, actually, let me know in the comment section if you know how this works. If something only has 3 strength, but I deal 5 damage to it, is that dealing 5 damage to 2 other things, or is it only dealing the 3 damage that I dealt to that character to the 2 other things? Because if it can deal the 5 damage, like this card is super busted. This thing is a be prepared on a body. Like when it shifts, I'm getting flashes of Emerald Ruby. Like, you know, just more targets for this to shift on with Morph, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah, if it deals 5 damage, that's insanely strong. Because I remember the way Pixelborn works. I haven't played that in a little while, but like you can overkill, right? Like when you deal like 7 damage to something that has like 1 toughness, it still shows that 7 damage. So if that's the way it works, this thing is like a be prepared on a body potentially, which is insanely strong. Like, and then like being able to bounce it back to hand or something with Amethyst, with like a Mim card, and then just re-threaten the shift. Yeah, this, never mind. Was I saying I was still on the fence about this card? This card is broken. This card is potentially busted, actually. I just talked myself into thinking it's busted. Based on the fact that if you do deal the 5 damage, you deal 5 damage to everything else. And then what's like even more super busted about this card is like Lumiere, give this +1. If you play this in Amethyst, Crab, give it +3. Like, it's back up to 5 next turn. So not only did I have like a huge, like this is the, to be fair, these are the kind of cards we need in the game. I know people are gonna be like, oh, Ruby Amethyst, we don't want to see more of that. I understand, but you need cards that have the potential to swing the tempo of the match. I've talked about this. A Whole New World is way too strong for what it does, because it's very exploitable early on in the game. I think that card is like, I know it's in Magic, it's Wheel, but in this game, it's a flawed design, like because of the shift targets and the way that the mechanics of this game works. Like A Whole New World has to be banned at some point. It's way too strong. You see whole decks, like the entire deck is based around Whole New World, right? But a card like this, when you're on the draw, a card like this can swing the tempo back in your favor. We had some cards like that, like Pinocchio could potentially do that, but in a very niche scenario, Pinocchio can do that, like the Exerting Pinocchio that costs 2. Maui's and stuff can help do that to a certain degree, but this card really can do that because this card will just wipe out an opponent's board. So yeah, this card is actually busted. I don't know what I'm on saying that this card wasn't going to be good. Yeah, that Mulan is nuts, actually, when I think about it. Mulan, Enemy of Entanglement. I reviewed this already, but this is one of the shiftable Mulans. 2 cost 1/3, very underwhelming. But again, you play this because you want to shift. This card is ridiculous. So earlier on, I was talking about Rapunzel healing Mother Gothel for 3. Ruby Amber healing up at 2/6. I've already talked about, in Amber Steel, why you seen Beast Tragic Heroes being cut from those lists, because like Robin Hood Rapunzel is just higher impact. The 3/6 body being healed by a Rapunzel. Like this thing being healed by Rapunzel, this thing being healed by Rapunzel, this costs 1. This is a shift target for Mulan. You imagine shifting this with the Mulan and then just like running over something and then it lives and then you heal it up, like, and then it can hit something else. Like, this card is what you needed for this, for sure. Again, this costs 1, and you're not playing this until turn 5, most likely. But what's even, I don't know if like Ruby Sapphire would really play this, to be fair. I guess they could, because they don't really play 1-drop characters, right? I have the deck built like literally in person. I never ended up using it, but I don't even remember what I built it as or how I built it. But like these packages, I think you probably play this one for sure. Maybe not this one, but maybe you do, because I mean the 1/3, but it's like a Minnie Mouse, right? I guess like, yeah, if you play an action, the 3/3 body is nice. It's like, Mr. Smee or a Mim. What is it? Fox? No, Fox. Mim Snake for a turn. But just this card, man. Like, just talking it through. Whew. Yeah, really nice. Anyways, I probably just let this video go on way too long. Oh, this card. I haven't seen it. Oh, yes, I have. That's the evasive one. Someone's face is on this card. Raya, a super rare. I don't know what this is. I haven't seen this yet. Another super rare Raya. Can we get one that's good? Whenever this character challenges another character, gain 1 lore for each other damaged character you have in play. Oh, that's interesting. 3 cost 3/3. Again, slow, no rush. Yeah, I don't know. Again, very situational. It has to survive. You have to be able to challenge something. You have to have damaged characters. It's very telegraphed because obviously you play this, on turn 3. If you play it on turn 3, it's probably low impact. You play it later on in the game, it probably just gets removed if it is a threat. So yeah, too hard to play around. Oh, Sisu. Whoa, human form Sisu? Okay. A 1 cost 3 uninkable. What? Evasive quest for 1? When you play this character, banish chosen character. Probably not really that relevant. Interesting though. Should have cost 2. And be inkable. These cards that are situational like this, like I draw this later on in the game, it's like this card is this card is dead. It's not even ink. It's like that's why you don't play this. That's why cards like this don't see play. Yeah, unfortunately not a good Sisu here, I don't think, really. This card, people have confirmed that you can get this ability even if you don't move to a location. So the versatility of this card, goes way up. Inkable, whatever body, it's a 3 toughness. That's kind of what matters. It's still quest, it's evasive, but being able to double up on a location. So again, kind of like what a Jim Hawkins does. Well, Jim Hawkins moves himself and plays a location for free. So not really what a Jim Hawkins, but like more location interaction is what I mean. Could potentially be very strong. Like, Queen's Castle, and then dropping this, moving your characters to the Queen's Castle. This has evasive. Pretty strong. Talked about Brawl. I like this card, but again, it's kind of like Rise of the Titans, right? Where it's just like, yeah, it's inkable, it's versatile, banish item, banish location, but like it's my turn to take care of your threat. This being able to hit any character though with 2 or less strength makes it way more applicable. So I would take that negative tempo swing. I keep bringing it up, but like I'd easily, especially if I'm on the draw, you drop a turn 3 Ursula Deceiver of All, I will be happy to play this and pass my turn off that, right? And just get your Ursula Deceiver of All off the board. That's how strong that card is. Talked about these 1 costing items already. Vitalosphere. I think any 1 cost item that has a decent effect is worth getting foil playsets of if you like foils. I like this card too. Oh, the advertisement is in the way of the cost of the card, but it costs 2, and you move, and it has 9 toughness. And again, this is another card that benefits off that Lumiere and can benefit with that Tuk Tuk. I'm telling you, man, Ruby seems to be the winner in this set, which I'm happy to see, because Ruby has had some. I know Ruby has had some very powerful cards, but overall, it's kind of an underwhelming color. Because when you think about like what Ruby Amethyst is, it's like under 20 Ruby cards and like 40 Amethyst cards. So it's good to see Ruby developing a little bit more of an identity. But yeah, this is interesting. Man. I'm just trying to think of like different ways of using this combo. Because I'm like Mulan with 5 strength, Lumiere makes it 6, but then you have to have the Mulan here first. So if you have the small Mulan here, and then you shift the big Mulan onto the small Mulan that's already here, and you already have the Lumiere in play, and then you wipe the board, gain 3 lore with the challenge. I don't know. Seems again very specific and niche. You don't want to play your deck like, oh, I'm gonna do this really cool combo, win the game. But I mean, it's just something that you can do. No passive lore, so not nearly as powerful as the cards we saw in set 3 with like McDuck Manors and the Queen's Castle. This Anna is in the structure deck. So again, more hero archetype kind of cards. 4 cost, 2/4. Whenever this character quests, your other hero characters get +1 lore this turn. So we had like a Queen of Hearts in Amber that did this for villains. Did not see any play. Don't expect this one to either, really. It's very slow. Hits the board, has to survive, has to quest. You have to have other heroes in play. You see this theme. It's like another very situational card. I've talked about this Ariel. This would be probably the super rare that I think you would probably want to pick up from Sapphire. I don't think this one is very appealing just yet. But again, it might be worth picking up if it's super cheap. I mean, super rares. Funny enough, like super rares end up being worth less than commons at times, right? So decent. You got a new Aurora, a 1/3 for 2 with Ward. We've seen a lot of these in Sapphire. They're just not meaningful. I think Ravensburger's design needs to move away from this kind of stuff. Like, no one cares about Ward 1/3 and it costs 1 extra than a 1-drop that's 1/3. You know what I mean? Like, this is meaningless on this, in my opinion. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Yeah, Sapphire, a little underwhelming. I've talked about this Olaf being interesting. You got a new 1-drop Olaf. I haven't seen this yet. A 1 cost 1/2 with support. All right, that's interesting. I think that's a decent 1-drop for Sapphire, in combination with like wanting to play this. So you got 2 1-cost Olafs now. Haven't seen this Pascal yet. 3 cost 3/3 colorful tactics. When you play this character, scry 3 and put them in any order. Underwhelming, but again, probably the in color combo with this Rapunzel. So we talked about this. I said this card has the potential to be pretty good. The 3/5 stat line, unfortunately, is like, at least right now, it seems like the worst stat line in the game, which I'm super bummed out about because, man, like, I would love for Snow White to be more playable. But you know what? Maybe in the Mufasa deck, Amber Ruby with the Lumieres, giving Snow White, making her a 4/5 so that she can survive against, or she doesn't get targeted by Medusa, is like really relevant. Maybe. I really want to make Snow White work, man. Snow White, I think, is like a really, like, Snow White, like, man, my brain is going off here. So the 2-cost Snow White comes down, heals up the 1-drop Mulan. So now she's a 1-cost, where is it? She's a 1-cost 2/3. So turn 1 Mulan comes in with 2 damage. Turn 2 Snow White 2-cost comes in, heals up this Mulan. Right, and then what is the shift on Snow White? Is it 4? And then the other Mulan is shift 5, right? Develop a Lumiere somewhere along those lines. I know I'm being like super specific because I'm like, oh, you need all these very specific cards for this combo to work. But just like the synergies, right? The synergies. You see any combination of these cards, it's very interesting because obviously you can heal this with the small Snow White, which is more relevant now than it was when I was playing that deck just for fun. And you can heal this up with a Rapunzel, right? So I've talked about this, right? Like these cards that synergize with multiple cards in the deck. You're not just looking to like run off a very specific combo. Can it synergize enough? So yeah, interesting. Anyways, I think this is I don't know if I'm maybe saying this preemptively, but I think this card probably is the best card in all of Sapphire for this set. I've already talked about why, but yeah, Scry, like it's basically aerial for items, which is kind of cool. Aside from that, I don't think there's really anything else. I'm not really too impressed with these Tritons given what Sapphire does already. Got another 2-cost 2/3 Tuk. Oh, the other one was 3-cost, right? But does nothing. Okay. Dig a little deeper. I've already talked about that card a little bit. Kind of interesting. What's this? Ice Block. A 1-cost item. Oh, chosen character has -1 strength this turn. That's really interesting. Wow. So obviously what comes to mind is Hiram fodder, right? Hiram, one of the best cards in the game. I mean, I think this is a decent card. I'll probably pick up 4 foil copies of this. Like, you can use it right away. You can just drop this, give something -1, challenge into it. So this is another one of those cards, like I was talking about, that really can surprise your opponent, right? And the fact that it's an item makes it more playable than like an action that you play and get like a one-time use off of. So this, you play it, you make something get -1. Now your opponent's like, oh shoot, the thing that I thought he couldn't challenge, now he can challenge it, and that throws off my game plan. You're like, you know, cooking up your own combo as you see your opponent play things. You're like, okay, I'm going to play Ice Block. I'm going to use this to challenge that when he quests with it because he thinks I can't take it out and blah, blah, blah. And then this card sits on the field and it's like, if I draw the Hiram or I have Hiram, you know, this is just a draw 2. Or I just keep it in play and now my opponent has to play around all their stuff getting -1. Or not all their stuff, but like their chosen character getting -1. So interesting. Oh, what's this? Oh, it's gaining lore. What does this cost? 3? 3 inkable, 8 toughness. Whenever a character quests while here, remove up to 2 damage from them. If they're a hero, remove up to 4 instead. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I think that's really good in draft. Probably not good in constructed. Could be decent in constructed, but again, I just think like I'd rather just play McDuck Manor if I was playing a location in Sapphire. This Aladdin, to be fair, I did write this off, and somebody in the comment section was like, I shouldn't write this off, and I agree. Again, just going back to the fact that it's a 3-cost Bloodborne, even like, you know, to forget the shift, but the fact that it is one of the main characters in Disney, Aladdin, right? It could be useful for sure. You know, I was a huge fan of the Ruby shift Aladdin, and seeing these guys come into play, it's unfortunate that they're on steel. You know, I wish Ruby got some more Aladdins, or, you know, Amethyst obviously isn't going to get any Aladdins, but I guess Aladdin is, well, we have an Aladdin in Emerald. And the one costs 1/3, so what'd you have in steel before? Tiana, which doesn't have a shift. Do we get Aladdin? Do we get a shift Aladdin at some point, maybe in a future set? So this is the thing, right? I mean, like Robin Hood is the same thing. It's like Robin Hood, the 1-drop, you only play it because of the big Robin Hood, right? This Aladdin, it would probably be the same thing. You pick these up in foil, you know, just want a nice playset because of a future good Aladdin, which is undoubtedly going to come, right? I mean, the Ruby Aladdin from set 1 is already amazing. It's just, you know, you didn't really have really good shift targets or really impactful shift targets to use it with. And again, this is the same thing as Mulan. It's a 1-cost and your shift is 5 for that Aladdin. Same with the Mulan, right? You're playing that 1-cost Mulan, your shift is 5, so it's a long ways away. But yeah, it's interesting. What else is good? I've already talked about this. I think so. I talked about this card, and I said I think it is a very good card. Aside from the fact that it just gets obliterated by a Medusa, which if this gets Medusa and you've like invested so much to like shift it and use your turn to play it, like you'd probably lose the game. So in that case, you probably ink it if you know you're up against Ruby, right? Like that's the decision you have to make. In other matchups, this thing can just like against other steel matchups, this thing just kind of can win you the game. like in an Amber Steel Song mirror or something, right? Like, how is Amber Steel Song getting over this 8 toughness if you develop this first? And then if it does live and it's able to sing next turn and stuff, now you're paying 2 to deal 3 damage to out their board. Like, you're just getting so much value. Like, even like what's even, the Emerald Steel deck that plays the Ursula Deceiver of All, sing Let the Storm Rage on. So first of all, develop the Ursula Deceiver of All, shift this onto an aerial or a morph, and then, you know, it survives. You sing a Let the Storm Rage on with the Ursula Deceiver of All, you draw 2, you deal 4 damage to something, then this you pay 2 more because you sung the song, you have all your ink available in the next turn, you deal an extra 3 damage to something, you're dealing 7 damage, drawing 2 cards, and you've only exerted the Ursula Deceiver of All. This thing can still quest or sing, and it's an 8 body that you've developed early on turn 4 because you shifted it onto a morph or another aerial. Like, pretty strong. I don't know, guys. I think, like, somebody pointed out, like, yeah, this is a hero and a pirate, this Donald Duck Buccaneer. Whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, other characters get +1 this turn. I'm just not a fan, right? Like, it's just so situational. I've already talked about this, so I'm not a fan. I haven't seen this yet. Well, I saw it later, but, like, you know, I didn't review it yet when I did the Sapphire Steel review video. But this card as a rare, I think, is definitely worth grabbing. Just a beefy Hercules, right? The shift one from set 2, I believe it was, that's a 6/3 with resist 2. This one is resist 1. They both quest for 2. That one is shiftable. This one isn't. I think they both cost 6. But this one has bodyguard. And this stat line, like, yes, it trades with Maui still, which keeps it in check, actually. But this thing could potentially, like this thing is a reverse Maui, if that makes sense. Like, your opponent is going to have to throw multiple things into this thing. It survives the Zeus, right? It doesn't pass the Maui check, but it survives Zeus. So, you know, they're going to have to Zeus it and throw a character into it. 2 for 1. They're going to have to throw multiple characters into it and get over the resist 1 both times. It 2 for 1s, because what has more than 6 toughness that's going to run over this, right? Like, outing this with a song, probably not too likely. And a card like, I'm going to bring this up, but a card like the World's Greatest Criminal Mind just becomes more and more techable once you see these higher strength characters become more relevant. But this being a bodyguard, like, is very relevant for its stat line. I think this card is pretty good in certain steel decks. This LeFou I've talked about as well. A lot of potential with this card. Where it can really shine, I think, is Amethyst Steel, where you play rush characters in Amethyst, and this card just develops for free, and then is bounce material for Mims. But, you know, it hits the board, it dumps your hand, you could play Whole New Worlds, or you just have Draw Engine because you're Steel and you're Amethyst anyways. Like, you rush characters down, so you out an opponent's threat. If your rush character lives, it might trade 2 for 1, kind of like how Maui does. And then you develop this card in addition to that. And then this card is a 3-cost character, which is super relevant that you play for free, because it can sing Let the Storm Rage on, Strength of a Raging Fire, Friends on the Other Side. That's really strong. Plus, you have Hook and Rafiki, but you don't probably play Rafiki, but you play Hook probably, and Hook being able to banish, because Hook trades up quite a bit into turns 1, 2, 3, 4, being that challenger too. Being able to drop this alongside the Hook is pretty strong. We're going to wrap things up in just a second here. This card I think is also decent, just because, you know, developing another character is really nothing. It's a 3-cost 4/4 body. Quest for 1. Does it do enough? Actually, maybe not at the 3-cost slot, because there's a lot of things competing in Steel with whatever it's paired with in the 3 slot. But interesting card, I think. I already talked about this Mickey. I think this is pretty good. Like, the crab for Steel, pretty strong in my opinion. This card, I kind of glazed over as like a hero synergy card, but this is another one of those things like I talked about with Amber and obviously with like what do you call it, Amethyst with like Goat. But you can drop this if it's, you know, if it's readied up, you just leave it, and then whenever you play a character you just get non-questing sources of lore. Late game you can drop this with like a lot of smaller 1-drop or 2-drop or whatever heroes and just surprise gain lore on the spot. Is Merlin Goat a hero? No, it's a sorcerer, right? That would be crazy. Could you imagine dropping Goat and just gaining 2 lore with like this and the Goat, and then getting another lore when you bounce it? But yeah, I think this card is kind of interesting. Hero decks might be viable because of a card like this. That's how powerful non-questing sources of lore is, right? Like that's why flutes are so strong too, right? For Amber. I did not see, I think this was revealed last, right? This new Piglet. I like this card, but again, it has that stat line. I mean, it has resist 1, so it survives Zeus, but like Medusa, it should have been a 4. For a legendary, it should have been a 4. This ability, so when you think about this, you're just like, well, I'm going to out a Bucky, I'm going to out a John, I'm going to out something that has ward that's just sitting there in ready state, a Cogsworth, whatever, because Cogsworth just dominates steel. It just sits there in the ready state, and you're just like, as a steel player, I can't do anything against that. So steel needed a card like this, but it needed to be better. The fact that it's on Inkable doesn't really matter in this case, because this card being able to challenge ready characters is strong enough that it warrants that I would still play this if it was a better statted card. I think it should have been a 4/5. The resist 1 is nice. Maybe it should have been a 4/5 quest for 2. Like, and the fact that you have to have no cards in your hand to challenge the ready character, I guess that's a fair thing. But like, where does this really fit in? Not in Sapphire Steel, not in Amethyst Steel. You're drawing cards like crazy in that deck. Same as Sapphire Steel, right? You got Whole New Worlds, you got Hurons. Not in Amber Steel. You don't have room for this because you want songs. Not in Ruby Steel. I don't know. Who knows what that deck looks like after this set, because that's kind of non-existent in the meta. And what's the final combination? Emerald Steel. You don't play this in Emerald Steel, right? Like, it's, yeah. So, you know, and then if you're challenging the readied character, like Beast Tragic Hero, would I want to challenge that? I can't, because it's 5 toughness. It deals 2 damage back to me, but like it doesn't, like this card doesn't do enough. Then this is exerted, and then the Beast is a 7 on the next turn. It just runs over this. Yeah, a little too underwhelming. I could be wrong though. This card could end up being like really good for something. I don't know. Maybe I'm not thinking it through, but let me know what you think. I did not see this. 7 cost super rare. 3/6 for 7, no shift. You're not Robin Hood. You can't pull this off. I'm not paying 7 to get Medusa. That's a game losing play right there. Challenger 2 is nice. Resist 2 is amazing. I mean, it is inkable to be fair, so maybe it's not so bad. Give it your best during your turn. Whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. Okay, a lot of good abilities. Actually, I jumped the gun. I was like, yeah, this is just like seeing this, man. Oh my gosh, it's just, it dies to, well, okay, it doesn't die to Maui because you have resist too. So, but you still die to Medusa. If you get Medusa on this card, that's like the worst case scenario. But aside from that, this card actually looks pretty decent. You have the Simba, which I think was really overlooked in set 3. I think Jeebus actually used it in his top 8 I think he got in the last 5K tournament in his Sapphire Steel deck. And the Simba is good, man. Draw 2, discard 2, just like dig through your deck for answers or deal 2 damage to something. Tinkerbell effect. Pretty good. So this card, Challenger 2, it's a 5/6 body, so it will run over stuff. It will survive. Resist 2, really strong. 6 toughness inherently. And then whenever you banish a character, when you challenge it, you're drawing a card. And unless your opponent has a non-challenge source of removal, this card is going to go multiple plus for you. So again, a situational card where it depends on your matchup, whether this card can be actually very, very strong or kind of weak. The other issue you face with this card is while the abilities and everything look very good, like at a point in the game when you get to this point, there are probably more impactful things that you need to play rather than worrying about, let me develop this really strong threat that's going to do all this stuff. There's probably other things that you need to do, right? So this thing, another 1-cost item that draws a card, is super strong. Sapphire Steel just got a whole lot better, in my opinion. And then the ability, you know, Popsicle, heal a character, this thing, banish, and a character of yours gains bodyguard. That's like kind of irrelevant. I mean, it could come up sometimes, just like healing comes up sometimes. But like, why would you ever want to use this? Give bodyguard to like your Robin Hood if you play that in your Sapphire Steel deck. It's a 6 toughness body that forces them to challenge it, which means when it gets banished, you draw a card, right? And they can't run over your other stuff, like if you have a Beast Tragic Hero that you can quest with or something. So interesting. This card, I think, is just like Popsicle, common, 1 cost, picking up 4 foil ones of this because this card will be worth a decent amount when it comes out and probably drop a little bit. Popsicles, I think, went down to like $3 or something. But yeah, good card. And that's pretty much it. You got these all the legendary reveals, or enchanted reveals. Another Cinderella, really. It looks like she's doing the telephone on her hand there. I don't see why we would do this again. The set 1 or the 1-cost Cinderella from set 2 enchanted is definitely the one that you would want, I think, over that one. I think this card looks the best. I like the robes and the hat, the flare on the card. Even though the card itself probably isn't that great. This card will probably be the one that's worth the most. You had Jafar, like it's just the amethyst card. Something about purple is just the nicest color. You know, Elsa, Jafar, now Ursula. The fact that this card is actually like, I keep saying it, like a really good card is oh, there's 3. Okay, so there's 3. You need 1 more for Amber. Okay. I mean, I already talked about this card being good, but do you really need it as an enchanted? Looks kind of cool, I guess, but I'm not a big fan of these enchanteds. I mean, Goofy's just not that cool of a character, in my opinion, even though the card itself is really busted. I don't really like this artwork, but... Oh, we only have 1 enchanted for Ruby revealed, okay. Cool artwork for the Queen, I guess. I've already talked about I don't like this, like, head wrap she wears, but, you know... Cool design, and this is nice, like extended artwork for the wall. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. Sorry if this one was long, but I know I've kind of recapped some stuff, but hopefully this video helped point out for you what you might want to be looking for when you start cracking your boxes, when you get to your trades, what I think might be developing as very good cards in the meta, some things that may be going under the radar, maybe overlooked. Some rares that I think will be worth money. Again, I'm not saying that I'm always right, but you know, I'm right sometimes. I think maybe, hopefully more often than I wasn't. You know, picking up those Cursed Merfolks, saying that they were going to continue to go up, calling out the Madam and Fox, saying it was one of the best cards in the game at the time, which, you know, I think that's kind of been proven. You know, I've been wrong a lot too, to be fair. I think I said Jafar should settle around 25. I still think Jafar is worth money long term. You know, that was wrong. I bought Arthur's at 15 and they're down to like $3 now. You know, that card might come back, but probably not. It's a little slow now in the meta. But, you know, hopefully this video gave you some insights. Again, not trying to say you should do anything. You know, take everything with a grain of salt. Use your own judgment. But I'm just trying to provide a different perspective. That's going to wrap it up, though, guys. I'm sure this video is probably like an hour long at this point. But if you made it this far, thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.